Oh, hey Doug, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Nice to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm very excited about today's episode because, as I mentioned in our pre-call, not every day that you get a serial successful entrepreneur onto the podcast, and I have got so many questions to ask you. But first, I'll ask my normal regular question: how do you like your coffee in the morning?
Brown and milky and instant. I'm an impatient person and I don't like the really strong stuff. So that's my morning wake up is an instant coffee.
Straight in there, efficient, quick. Now, what is it that you do, Doug, and why do you do it?
That's a big question. So I work in consultancy in software development. So we work with clients to build technology with them and for them. And I kind of fell into it, to be honest. I'm kind of a closet geek, I guess, like back in the early noughties when the web was just really starting to get going. Just after the .com bubble burst, I started to sort of suss out how to code, and how I was really interested in how you get stuff on the web. Like, how do you get out there and then build these things that anyone can see? So I started to get into that, and I felt like there was an opportunity there to go and help others sort of promote what they were doing in a new way. That might sound like in the early noughties that was late, but we weren't. Like, we set up as a digital agency in 2004, and we just started helping clients just build web stuff for them, and just enjoyed it. So yeah, fell into it and haven't looked back, to be honest. One thing I would say that influenced that is that I started off in a B2B ad agency in London in 2000. That was my first job out of university, and I realized after a few years that I didn't want to work for someone else. And that was my leading thought. That was my hustle. I was like, how can I do something that is not beholden to others above, and where I think I can, figure out a way to make it work. I was also very lucky to have two other friends from university who I kind of convinced that we could do this, and they joined forces. And they were also very talented in creative design and software development. So yeah, that's how we got going. Definitely recommend anyone trying to start out that they don't go it alone, in my opinion. And 3 was a good number, right? Because you can have two people who just butt up against each other and you don't get anywhere. But with 3, you've got the weighing vote of like, well, you're going to eventually get to 2 versus 1, and then you just kind of go with politics there. And that worked really well for us. Anyway, I've gone on a bit, but that's how I got going.
Okay, so you just mentioned then about obviously being a team. That was definitely beneficial from when growing a business, because I completely agree. If you're in a partnership and you just can't see eye to eye, that's definitely one of the reasons why businesses fail or move apart from each other, as the business changes over time. But from your opinion, though, what are some of the biggest challenges that stop a business from your experience?
That is a very complicated question. I think that a lot of businesses start thinking that they'll just succeed, or think they've got it all worked out, and from what I've seen is they go, we've got this great idea, whether it's a software product or whether it's a service they're providing, but they haven't really sort of figured it fully out, and they just jump head first. What worked, just anecdotally, what worked for us was knowing before we set out, we already had conversations going with warm leads, connections, friends, network, who'd be interested in working with us. whatever it was. We were just happened to be doing software development, but even in my future endeavors, it's always been about around finding 2 or 3 clients who might work with you, figuring out what you could do together, figuring out the size of that opportunity, and then building your business around that early sort of first few months to a year, knowing what revenues you might be able to achieve. But also, you know, with software development, you've got this idea. That's also quite hard. And I've never had to go and raise money on an idea to then go off and be able to do it. I've always managed to do consultancy and bootstrap, basically. So forego taking home more money, you know, month to month, year to year, or, you know, paying people more by actually involving them in the business at a lower remuneration, but also sweat equity. And I think businesses probably, if they do fail, they just don't get those dynamics right. They don't think about it with enough common sense around where things can go wrong if you go out there or out the traps really, really fast and just think you've got it all worked out. And I've seen businesses, fail's a hard word. They shrink, and the founders can't be doing it anymore. They're just exhausted by it. So yeah. I have lots more to say on it, but that question itself is like a 5-hour round table for me. Or, you know, I've chatted to a lot of people over the last 5 years who've come to me through network and asked me about how I managed to do what I'm doing with my friends and, you know, colleagues. And I've just imparted that to them and said, look, do this, do that, get your numbers worked out, have that spreadsheet, think what you can afford, what you can't afford, how you're going to get from there to there. But all of that is obviously a very many splintered thing in terms of that question, because it does depend on what kind of business you're trying to build. Consultancy is actually quite easy in a way, because you eat what you kill, as it were. You do a project, it's lumpy, you get paid, and then you try and use that case study to go and set or organically grow that. But with software as a service, you have to somehow build something, MVP or prototype. So in software, you either want to be a technologist, a techie, or you want to have a co-founding techie who'll do that. Like the best team up is and everyone would have seen this on various Instagram posts, TikToks, YouTube, wherever, on LinkedIn. You should kind of have a tech co-founder and someone who's really good at selling or good in front of people and just knows how to, you know, do that part. And that's a winning formula, as long as you're onto the right idea.
Well, you've just gone through so many different things there that we could be absolutely digging into. But I do think you're right in that there is the patterns I've certainly noticed is once somebody's got an idea, they want to see how fast can they grow it. You know, and which is great. You know, it's obviously enthusiasm and excitement, but arguably that's the easiest bit in business, is having the idea. You know, execution is the hard part, and a little bit of actual testing and patience, like you said, around the MVP can go a long way, especially in the bootstraps phase. Just my personal opinion, I do think people jump to the investor VC stage super, super quickly, when you could have one idea originally, get the data and feedback from you know, the audience, and go, actually, I think there's a better idea here that we could be going down as an angle. And you just think that could save you 10 years of hard work just by maybe, like, let's call it, I don't want to use the word sacrificing 6 months, but, you know, being a bit more patient in that time. And but one of the things that you said, what was really interesting was they burn out. Now, this is a really, really always like highly topical question of one of the big reasons, categories, let's say, of why businesses stop or close down is because they just say they're exhausted, you know, just tired of this, or they see going back into, let's call it, the corporate life, the employee life, as quote unquote easier. To me, in my personal opinion, I just think it's choose your hard. choose which hard that's actually right for you. But what is that drive, what is that fire that keeps you going throughout the years, and even that energy to go like, let's go start something new, like growing it, build something new, grow it, scale it, move on to the next project? Like, what is that? Dara, I don't even want to use the word motivation. I'm going to throw it in there.
No, that's a really, really good, interesting question for me. Again, I tend to overthink these sort of questions. I think, well, you look at this way or that. But for me, and it is kind of, there's no cookie cutter for this. Like, once I'd done my first agency and it was successful, that success and also exiting it gave me a cushion, like a financial cushion, which therefore made doing the next thing, the drive to do it, an easier place. You know, you don't, like, a lot of the time people go back to if they can, back to a corporate environment, or up to, you know, choosing your hard, but choosing something where you're not the one who is dependent on the revenues of your business to pay all your staff and yourself, etc. It's like that is the choice you make. So if we're talking about, like, you build a successful business and you either exit it or you want to do something else, and you could kind of get other management in to do that, and you want to, you know, got itchy feet, want to go and try something else. Once you've done it once, it obviously becomes a lot easier, because you've gone through the battle scars of working out where things, you know, it wasn't a perfect journey. You know, you have dicey moments, but, you know, we made it through and made it successful. To answer your question around the drive, like, implicitly, there's a personal makeup to me that makes me kind of like that. I just am in everything I do in life. I'm sort of, you know, everyone says they've got some sort of ADHD or whatever. I know for a fact, because I've been diagnosed, that I have that in my makeup. And it does make you kind of impatient, but also, like, very difficult to move yourself on from it. So I sort of really, like, I get it, you know, dog with a bone, and go, right, I'm going to figure this out one way or the other. And it also makes you work your butt off. Like, you don't think about 9 to 5. You, like, when you're, and I don't like the term entrepreneur because of the connotations of it, but when you're hustling, you don't switch off. You wake up, and yeah, you have some sort of downtime. You do that, you know, probably with friends as opposed to in your own little headspace. But I am always thinking about the next thing, or about how to do something slightly different to change it up. And that actually leads to where people will burn out. Like, back to your previous question around all the comments around burning out. That's obviously not great for your mental health if you're constantly kind of thinking about it all the time and things aren't going great. So I think burnout is less likely if you can set up with more than just yourself as an entrepreneur. Do it with people you know and trust, who you know what they bring to the table, even if they're just a sanity check for you, but they can do something in the business that helps you, because that obviously resolves some of the level of burnout. Sometimes it's just having an escape exit to talk about things, but more often than not, from what I've seen, which is not a broad data set, that startups or businesses fail because it's just one person at the top. I'm not saying that they might get someone and employ people, but they're literally in an echo chamber, and they're not listening to, or they're not listening to what other people are saying, and they feel like, you know, that's a mentality. Like, you have to, I think you have to be listening to all the people around you, and ultimately at the end of it all, it isn't just about the money. It's about growing a business. For me, it's about growing a business that employs other people, and you create a team, and you have that enjoyment of when things go right. You can commiserate when things go wrong, and if you're lucky enough to have an exit, you're not holding a glass of champagne up to yourself. You're like, you know, it's a joint thing. Anyway, I've gone off on one a bit there, but
this is perfect, because it just swings back to, you know, you're saying that in a team of 3 of you, and you're able to share that load of responsibility. You're able to almost band together, like I said, when things don't go right, which it will happen. People think, oh, it's going to be sunshine and rainbows the whole time. No, you have to be realistic about it. It's not going to go right the whole time, because usually, I have one of these questions in the podcast saying, what was one of those failures that were like a blessing in disguise? And it's really purposeful to highlight that when things are going to go wrong, but if you've been in business long enough, you always know is with a bit of hard work and a bit of problem solving, you actually end up with something better every single time. And I find that really motivating when you're in that burnout, tired stage where you've just pushed it a little bit too far. Because you're right, when the brains, I always call it the monkey brain, the monkey brain's ticking all the time, being like, oh, like, well, how could we be doing this? What about this? Well, X, Y, Z that's going through. It does take a lot of energy. Without the right rest, you are going to be susceptible for more burnout than others. But everything we're really talking about here is very much about the mindset and that perception on how you're tackling the team or the challenges in front of you. But I'd be curious to know, through the years of experience and hindsight, has your definition of success also changed with that?
Has it changed? I think fundamentally, no. Like a outcome of success is obviously the financial reward of it. Like if you're successful in a business, then you're going to make more money, aren't you? Because you've got more clients, you've done this and done that, and that's all great. For success, what I measured success by was obviously at the time when I was 27 when I set my first agency up with my two friends, and we were just pleased we'd survived a year. We weren't, I don't think, even, and without sounding arrogant, I think we had quite a lot of common sense on our shoulders at that stage. We kind of like, we weren't going in there going, we're going to smash, we're on to something really exciting here, we're going to smash through it. We could see some of our peers or bigger peers like doing well, and we thought it'd be great to get there. But success for us was, incrementally hire the first employee, pay ourselves a salary, and like step by step get these little things going. And all those things ladder up to what everyone perceives as success is, well, a lot of people, I don't, but like, material stuff and wealth and yada yada. For me, it was just growing a business and having something you can feel really proud of, where I say this totally genuinely, it's a really great feeling knowing that you've created something from scratch. We did it from scratch to a business that employed at the end of it like 65 people in the UK and the US who we all knew really, really well. And they kind of, we were a great team, and we all, we provided their income, basically. We provided their job, and they helped us grow. Like that, and they didn't articulate that particularly well, but that's that's a feeling that people often don't acknowledge outside. But I think most people who are entrepreneurial, that's more important than the paycheck, is actually that, growing something. I don't know, I might not make total sense to some of the viewers, but that's what kind of makes me tick.
You're making total sense to me. So you've got one audience here who's got it, because there is something when I've seen my team and my employees go on they've gone on like nice holiday, or they've gone traveling for a little bit, or they've been able to have a nice wedding or get a brand new car, or like, I know I'm talking slightly like materialistic things, but they're the easy things for me, signals to spot about the lifestyle and life they're creating from the work and the let's call it the entity that we're building. There is something like, okay, we're doing something here, and whilst it can sometimes feel like a bit of a burden, that responsibility to always make sure to support them with that lifestyle, it is nice when it's going well. It's going really well.
Yeah, and I think added to that point, And I'm not sort of being totally like, I don't believe in, nice things, holidays and whatever. But we were really like open with our staff, our team, about the success of the business. And we were very clear that if we had a good year, they were going to do pretty well as well. Other than the standard, like as we went on, people got paid better, but we didn't have a sized rule around what their full comp, including bonus, would be. If we had a good year, we other than needing for our own sanity, we needed at least try to get it up very quickly to 3 months of revenue for the staff, so we were safe for 3 months in case COVID happened, but the other things were like, we were like, we've had a good year, you're all going to get a nice bonus. And we try to, like, people get, as a team, when you're that size, and there is something about size that's not manageable when you get really, really big, but when you're a smaller business, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, you can make those decisions. And we decided that people got remunerated. There's a disparity in salary because of what they did, how long they've been doing that thing, and how good they were, like skills based. And then the bonus was literally a bonus pool that was everyone got the same amount. So even the most junior youngling who'd come in at the beginning of that year and we'd had a really good year, they were like, holy moly, this is like 50% of my salary in one go. And we didn't run the business like that's all for us. We actually knew that as we were getting along, that the value they were creating was incrementally for the whole business. When you exit, it's not just about the revenue you've got cash in hand, it's about the projected revenues of the business. So if you're going to do 2.53 million in a year, relevant of cash at hand, they're helping you build the value of the business. We're also fairly, and have definitely been this way inclined in later along the line, is actually retaining staff or making them sticky, forcing them to be sticky, but sticky with us by rewarding them with options and equity and skin in the game, not just month to month, year to year. And that feels really good, knowing that if you do at some point exit, they'll get something out of it as well, which I'd advocate for, actually. But not so easy if you go and get a load of money from a VC or angels, and all these rules come in about how you can do, how big you can make the options at all and all that stuff. But I'd be very happy to chat to anyone about my thoughts on that more broadly.
Yeah, well, how about we'll save that for another podcast, episode 2, and we'll just focus on that one area, because like you said, that's a whole, we could dig into that so much more. But if I may, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because one of the things that you said to me, what I really just loved, and I wanted to make sure we get in there, is really you grow a business through either nepotism or network. And I wanted to dig in, like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean?
Pretty straightforward in my mind. I use nepotism broadly, because nepotism usually refers to incredulously favouring your kin and your family into roles in your business. And so I mean more broadly, like going to your best friends from school, uni, or in your local area, where or local village, and you meet people. That kind of feels a bit more than networking, but not quite nepotism. But the importance of it when you're starting out. Later on, like if you're successful, that isn't a thing anymore, because as you grow, you just make your network gets bigger, and you start getting cold inbounds because people have heard about you. So that's where marketing comes in. But when you're starting out, having some friendlies within your network, or nepotistic network, let's call it, who value what you do, value you as a human, know you're the real deal, or know you can bring some value to something, or back you for this idea you've got, is so important. Because you need, we said at the beginning of this podcast, like, you need your first, I always say, again, probably wrongly, that this triumvirate of your first 3, not 2, not 1, 3 clients working with you, and just getting them on board, even if you're doing slightly different things for each one. Just get those first 3, hook or by crook. You might not be making much money out of it. You might even do stuff for free for them, but getting their logo on there and a quote and a testimonial, that in itself is, and the case study is worth so much, because people viewing it go, oh, I can see they've done it with this, even if they're a very small entity, they've done this, the quote is good. And if you don't get a good quote, then you're not going to put it anywhere, and you're also going to wonder about, a client reference, you're going to wonder about whether you should actually be doing this. But you get those things. I know this is really obvious, but people sometimes miss it. It's just get those wrapped up and right, and then use those, and then grow from there. Like so many code, right, we need 15 clients straight away. Let's, ping this, like concentrate, make those first 1, 2, or 3 the most important things in the world to you at that point in time. Like that you want them to be with you for years, and you want them to advocate for you. So you should never, as soon as you land a beer moth and you've gone from this one to this huge thing, don't ever let them feel like they're sidelined. That worked really well for us growing. Like we never made our clients feel less worthy of our time and our services if they were just smaller or weren't spending as much. We didn't have a hierarchy of services and they're the big checks, so we're just going to treat them like that. We treat these people, they're humans. They have their own unique set of challenges, and that's another thing I would say in this is really, and I know going off down a rabbit hole a bit, but 3 marquee clients, run with them, make them feel like they're the most important thing in the world to you, and understand their role in the business better than they do. Your job, if it's SaaS or if it's services, engineering, whatever, is to make them shine in their business. Is make them look great. And especially in my background, being a digital agency or getting a client to maybe on board to a bit of technology, you hold their hand, you make them look good wherever you can, you help them with their challenges, you go the extra mile, and you, at the end of the day, you become really good friends with them, so that when they maybe move on to the next job somewhere else, they go, Doug, I've just moved to this role. I want to work with you again. That's how these things go round. Look, sack stuff. Yeah.
I was just going to add in that as well. Doing that, being able to just go that extra mile also gives you a bit of a framework on how can I include this, that extra mile as part of the process. And I think I learned this too late. I obviously haven't learned it too late, because it's actually how I developed my product offer. But I kind of wish I'd learned it sooner, is what I'm saying. Because when you have that time to go the extra mile, you start to work out, like you said, what's really going to make them shine, what's really going to make them do the best results. And if you're producing the best results for them, and then you can almost backtrack this and look and go, okay, great, how can I make this as my standard process then? How can I then make this repeatable? What does that look like? Those are very different questions to how can I make my product better? Because you've already worked out how to make this the best possible product ever, and now you're just going to work out, actually, how can I make this actually viable, essentially. And it's a much more enjoyable process, because like you said, you've got the 3, which probably by that time you've worked out how to make this a standard process, you might have 5, because they've talked about you so much already to all of their clients. This is a bit fresh because I've had this week actually, where got a client meeting with me, one of my fave clients. I don't have favorites. I say they're all my favorite. Yeah. But they were like, oh, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this person, you need to talk to this person, because their clients are asking them who's doing all of their stuff for them. And that is just because, literally, like you said, just worked out that process of how do you go the extra mile, and how do we standardize this? Yeah, there's a winning formula there in whatever business you're trying to offer. One thing that we figured out really early on that talks to the point about making your clients look great is we would offer to help them create their presentation for them. But we'd give them the template with their client logo on and go, here's all the information, and they'd literally take that and report it to their stakeholders, their team members, and go, the team have put this together over at our agency. This is great, and they could tweak it themselves. We'd send them, in the early days of PPT versus Google Slides. You'd give it to them, but you'd literally be saving them so much time.
and that's another thing that they just love. They go, I know if I work with them, they're going to do part of my job for me. And they get that I have to do these things. And sometimes they go, if they're a bit fresh to it all, they wouldn't even realise that would be good for their career, that they do present this stuff. They go, I hadn't really thought about doing we said, look, we suggest you try and do a weekly catch up with your internal stakeholders, and we'll send you a presentation to show them to each month, to each week, to show them the progress that's going on, even if it's little, but at least you're informing them. And knowledge precipitation, as it were, for their internal teams is really, really important. So that's a freebie. I think everyone should do more of that. But that just harks back to the fact you need to keep your clients really close, especially your first ones, and make them want to do more with you.
Well, I think that is a really great place to kind of end today's podcast, and because there's so many little nuggets and tips that people could be implementing in their business tomorrow. So Doug, if they wanted to carry on this conversation, where can they go and find you and continue to talk to you, and how you could possibly help them?
Very easily, obviously LinkedIn, just look for Doug Ayres, look for ebm.ai. You've seen this horrible face now. You'll recognize me. It's very similar on my LinkedIn post. I'm very happy to connect with anyone. I
highly encourage everybody goes and reaches out to Doug and checks out what the companies and SaaS platforms that Doug's doing, because they are really, really incredible. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really enjoyed this. And
likewise.
I'll see you again soon.
Cheers.